Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to go over your review sheet. I also hope that you study your exit tickets and your Delta Maths and your notes to also prepare you for this test. So the first question says a video of a grumpy cat has gone viral. On the first day, so we got a first day situation here, it was viewed 6,000 times. That tells me A1 is 6,000 because remember we're dealing with sequences here. And each day the number of visits increases by 40%. Now, once you see a percent, it's usually geometric, and also they tell you geometric series formula. So this is telling me R is 1 plus 0.4 because we're increasing. So this gives me an R value of 1.4. Okay? They want you to use the geometric series formula. You would find this on your reference sheet, and then they want you to find the cumulative views over 2 weeks. So we're going to use the SN formula because we're finding a series, which is a sum, because we want cumulative number. That means another word for sum. R to the N all over 1 minus R. So the only thing is we need to figure out, we know A1 is 6,000. So I'm going to put that in. We know R is 1.4. But we're missing the N. And that is how many terms you're adding up. In this case, it's how many days. Each day it increases by 1.4. So they give us 2 weeks, and we know that that means 14 days. So I'm going to put N as 14 in here. Oops. Okay, and I'm going to type this whole thing into my calculator. I usually use alpha y equals for this. And then you end up getting an answer, and that answer is, I'm just typing it into my calculator, choice 2. Next question says the third and fifth terms, we got third term and fifth term, are 16 and 36. If the sequence is either arithmetic or geometric, which is not a possible value for the fourth terms? They want you to figure out term 4. Okay, so I'm going to do it both ways, so arithmetic and geometric. So the arithmetic way is to, first off, you need to figure out D. And the way that we figure out D algebraically is slope. So you would do 36, like think of this as X and Y. 36 minus 16 over 5 minus 3. It doesn't matter which order you use as long as you pair them up properly, like 36 goes with 5 and 16 goes with 3. And then when you subtract that, you end up getting D equal to 10. Which means that a possible value for 4 is 26 because you're adding it. So I know 26 is possible. Okay. If you don't like the way that I found D here, remember you can use the list 1, list 2 trick. If you go to stat edit, you can enter this into list 1 and list 2, then do stat calc and do lin reg. And then I think it's the A value, that's the D on there, it's the slope. That's why we're doing slope here. So for geometric, the algebraic way to find R would be to divide the two numbers. Then you figure out how far these apart. They're 2 terms apart, so you're going to take a square root. And because we're taking a square root, we're going to put plus or minus in front of that. And that's going to end up giving us an R value of, I think it's a decimal, 1.5. So now if I multiply 16 by 1.5, I would end up getting 24, because this times 16 times 1.5 is 24. So I got 26 or plus or minus 24 as my option, depending on arithmetic or geometric. So this is an option, this is an option. So my answer has to be negative 26. Just as an FYI, a good hint would be choose the one that is opposite of the arithmetic one you get, because an arithmetic sequence cannot alternate signs. Only geometric can, because when you multiply by a negative, you alternate the signs. Yeah, again, the list 1, list 2 trick is very useful, so if you didn't follow what I did to find R and D, use that. Okay, next question says a car depreciates at a rate of 15% per year. So I see 15% in depreciating. So first off, when I see a percent, I'm thinking of a geometric sequence. And I'm going to do 1 minus 0.15 because we're decreasing by a percent. So this gives me an R value of 0.85. The new car was bought at a price of $35,000. So that means its initial price, in this case A0, because it's not even a year that the car is. If it was a year, then we would put A1. but it's just the initial price of the car is $35,000, so A0 before A1. Which of the following recursive formulas expresses the car value n years after it was purchased? Now, recursive needs two parts, so automatically I'm going to cross off choice 1 and choice 3 because it doesn't have two parts. And then process elimination, it's this one. We got A0 stated. You know, you can start, we usually state A1, but you can state any term you want, so that's why they picked A0 because they gave us A0. And then 0.85 an minus 1. What's also nice is that if you have a question like this, it might help you in the part 2s because it kind of gives you a recursive formula to base off of, because you guys have to memorize the recursive formulas. Next question says the explicit formula, write the explicit formula and then find the 50th term. So first things first, you got to figure out what kind of sequence this is. So the easiest way to do that is to mess with the numbers. So I'm going to do -2 minus 5, which is -7. And then I'll do it again, -9 minus -2, and that gets you -7 again. So I can see it's arithmetic. If this didn't work, I would have divided the two of these instead, but because I see that I am going down by -7, I already know that it's arithmetic. Now, because it says explicit formula, you're going to go to your reference sheet and write this formula down. And they want the formula first, so an equals A1, which is 5 plus n minus 1, which is staying here, and then D, -7. Please put parentheses around this. Now I'm going to go even further and simplify it, because if this was multiple choice, they most likely will simplify it. Not all the time, but I just want you guys to be prepared for anything. So it could be this, or it could be the simplified version, which is just distributing and combining like terms. So an equals 5 plus 7 is 12. Minus 7n. So they want the formula, then they want the 50th term. To find the 50th term, that means n is 50, because that's the term you want. And that just means you're going to take your formula and replace n with 50. You're going to plug that into your calculator, and you're going to end up getting -338. Next question. This is a sigma notation. They want you to write it and then evaluate the sum. So, you're going to first figure out what kind of sequence you have here. So if you look at it, it's going up by 3, so it's arithmetic. To find the formula that goes inside the sum, first off, it's first 10 terms, so 1 to 10 is all of these. Like if you guys can see 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to 10. So that makes sense. We got to put inside the equation a formula. First off, even if you look at choice B, you can tell that this is not the answer because that one's a geometric one to the exponent, so I'm going to eliminate that right away. And I'm going to now find the formula for this using my explicit formula off the reference sheet. Because remember, the sigma is the sum of a sequence, another way to do series. So therefore, what you can do is just remember that a series is the sum of a sequence, and the explicit formula gives you the numbers of the sequence. So that's why we're using it. Okay, A1 we have is -1 plus n minus 1, and D is 3. I'm going to distribute this in, -1 plus 3n minus 3, and then combine like terms, I get 3n minus 4. So it should be choice C, and all of the choices have 125 as an output. But if you're not sure, go to math and then scroll up and find the sigma and type this in, and then you should end up getting 125 as a answer. Okay, next question. It says, state the explicit and the recursive formula for the following sequence. First off, what kind of sequence do we have? Well, looking at it, I can tell that it is multiplying by -2. Now, if you don't see that, what you can do is you can divide this by this and divide this by this. 4 divided by -2 is -2. -2 divided by 1 is -2. And you can see that the pattern is division. Also, a nice giveaway is that this is geometric because the terms are alternating. I'm going to need A1. So these are my two things I'm going to need for my formulas. Let's do the recursive one first because they asked for it. And if you don't know the recursive formula, go back to the first page and look at I think the last question it was. But recursive formula has 2 parts. You have to state A1 or any term you want. I usually just use A1. And then you do what the pattern is. It's -2 times the previous term in this case. If this was arithmetic, you would just do the number plus an minus 1. But it's always going to have an minus 1, and a1 for the recursive. Okay, so the explicit one, we know this is on our reference sheet. So I'm going to look at my reference sheet and plug into this formula. And you get an equals a1, which is 1, negative 2 to the n minus 1. This one actually kind of simplifies because 1 times anything is, I'm not even going to do that because I don't want to confuse you. You don't even need the 1 there, but it's there. I don't want you guys to ever multiply the things that are there. I don't know why this isn't moving. Okay, there we go. Okay, Craig drops a bouncy ball from a height of 20 feet. The bounce rebounds 90% of the previous bounce, the preceding bounce, okay. What's the total downward distance to the nearest foot the ball traveled up to the 10th bounce? So, okay, this is a lot of information. We got a bouncy ball dropping from a height of 20 feet. It rebounds 90%. So that means it doesn't add or subtract 90%. It just rebounds 90% of what it has before. So no 1 plus 1 minus deal, just 90%. They want the total downward distance to the nearest foot it traveled up to the 10th bounce. So this total word is basically telling you to use a series. The word total means sum. Series means sum. Okay, so that looks really messy. I was just trying to say series slash sum. Not that you guys care, but it still looks messy. Oh well. So we're going to find the formula on our reference sheet, which is this guy. Okay, I'm going to plug in. So the sum of 10 bounces, A1 is 20, because we're dropping from 20 feet. So there's 20 feet, and then it's going to drop again, then it's going to drop again, then it's going to drop again, until it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, the bouncy ball. Okay, so 20 minus 20, R is 0.9 to the 20th, and then 1 minus 0.9. Just type that into your calculator, and then you want the nearest foot, so you type that in. I'm just typing into my calculator now. And what the heck? Where's my answer? 130 feet. Label it. Oh. Moving on. Jamie is selling apples. Her sales are depicted below. What type of sequence does Jamie's graph imply and why? So you could say a few things here, but I would say arithmetic. And there's two things you could say. Because the sequence is linear. With an increase of 5. Yeah, it's 5 because it's skipping 5, 10, 15, 20. Yeah. 5 each bushel. If it was geometric, it would look exponential. It would look like this, the dots, and whereas this one looks like a line. And then you would find what it multiplies by. Okay, write a recursive formula to represent the cost of the apple bushel. So recursive, remember, you need to state A1. So how many apples does she have on the first bushel? 5. Okay, and then AN equals what's happening? We are adding 5 to the previous term. You could write it this way, or you could do the AN minus 1 first and then do the plus 5. I don't really care. Just pick one. It just happens to be that A1 and the D value is the same. D is 5 because it goes up 5 every time over there. All right, it says Andrew's also selling apples, but the cost of his first bushel is 15. So we have his as A1 is 15. But it follows the same price pattern, so it's still going up by 5. Write an explicit formula in simplest form to represent his price per bushel. So this is an arithmetic sequence, so I'm going to write my explicit formula by looking at my reference sheet. And then we're going to plug in AN equals 15 plus N minus 1, and then D. Now they want simplest form, which means that they want you to distribute this in. Oops. Remember, you can only do that on the arithmetic ones. Plus 5N minus 5. And then just combine like terms, we get 10 plus 5N. And that should be it. Next question. The table below shows the number of new stores in a coffee shop chain that opened during the years in 1986 through 1994. They want you to use x equals 1 to represent the year 1986 and y to represent the number of new stores. This is x, this is y. They want an exponential regression equation. So equation y equals exponential ab to the x. That's what they want. Round all values to the nearest thousandth. Okay, so first a few things. Please make sure you have y equals, because otherwise it's not an equation. And also make sure you round properly. You're going to have to replace all the years. You cannot type in years into your calculator. So if you see, they say use x equals 1 to represent 1986. So this goes up by 1, then 1987, 2, 88, 89. There's no skipping here. I don't think 90, 91, 92, 90. Yep, no skipping. So we can just go up by 1. 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to your calculator and you're going to put this into list 1 and this into list 2. You know, stat, you need to press stat, edit. I don't have a calculator on this one. I'm doing this one on my iPad, so it's not on the Chromebook. Stat, edit, and then you're going to enter your data into list 1 and list 2. Then you're going to go to stat, and you're going to go to calc, and you're going to choose choice 0, which is exponential regression. Once you get there, you're going to find A and B and round properly. They want the nearest thousandth. So I rounded 10.596 and then 1.586 to the x, and that's all they want for this question. Oops. Okay, next question, last page. While experimenting with her calculator, Angela created the sequence 3, 10, 31, 94, 283. They want you to write a recursive formula for Angela's sequence and then determine the 7th terms. They want A7 and then write the recursive form. So recursive, remember you need the first term, in this case 3, or any term you want, but I always like to use the first term. And then AN equals, and it always has to do with the previous term. If you can at least write this on your paper, I can kind of give you points. I could probably give you 2. Because you're showing that you know that the recursive needs the first term and it needs a formula with the previous term. And you know that you're finding A7. So let's figure out the pattern here. This is, let's zoom in here, neither arithmetic or geometric. And the reason why is because this is 7 apart, this is not. So it cannot be arithmetic. It's not going up by adding. When you do 10 divided by 3, it's not the same thing as 31 divided by 10. So it's not going to be a geometric one because it's not multiplying by the same thing. So what I did is I took these numbers and saw what they were apart. And I figured out it was 7, like I said before. These numbers were 21 apart. These numbers were 63 apart. These numbers were 189 apart. And then I started to see a pattern. I started to see that how much they were apart was because we were multiplying this by 3. Every time you times it by 3, you get the next thing that you're like adding by. And if I continue the pattern, I could find term 7 at least. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. Because that's what we want. So if you're stuck, at least you can do this and figure out what the heck's going on. So I'll add times 3. That means that from here to here, let's keep it in blue. Here to here means that you're adding 567. And 283 plus 567 got me 850. Then I did this times 3 to figure out what it was adding up by here, and I got 1,701. And I added that to 850 and got 2551. So I was able to at least figure out that A7 was 2551. But I still have to figure out the actual formula of this. So what I did was I kind of messed with the numbers. I knew that times 3 was involved, so I did 3 times the previous term. And 3 times 3 is 9, and then to get to 10 I added 1. So then I tried to see if that worked. So 3 times 10 is 30, add 1 is 31. 3 times 31 is 93, add 1 you get 94, and so on and so forth. So that's your answer. On the test, this next question is just going to say write it in a single term. So that means I just need to bring these guys together. So let's mess around with this. At first, I'm going to see if I can reduce these radicals. So 6x is perfect. We can square root 36 to be 6, and we can square root x squared to be x. And then times x to the 1/3. Plus, the cube root of 27 is 3, but I can't take the cube root of 4. But what I can do is I can write it as 4 over 3, power over root. And the reason why I'm choosing to do this and instead of breaking it up is because looking at this term here, it's in the power term. So maybe it'll help if this is in the power term, and then I can bring these guys all together, because that's the goal. The goal is to bring this and this all together. But first things first, I have to bring these guys together somehow. And if you remember, if you have x and x, you can combine them by adding the exponents. So 1 plus 1/3, if you just type it in your calculator, it ends up giving you 4/3. And my little trick of making it an exponent actually really helped me out here, because if you can see, x to the 4/3 is the same thing as x to the 4/3, which makes these guys like terms. So therefore I can add 6 and 3 and get 9. You can leave the answer like this, or you can go ahead and transform it back to radical form, power over root. It's really up to you. Either or is acceptable, because I'm only going to ask on the test expressed as a single term. The next question says the directrix of a parabola has the equation y equals -8. Find the focus. So we want to know what f is. Remember, within a parabola, you need to know v, you need to know a, you need to know d, and how it opens. Those are all important things. So the vertex I can take out of my formula. I just have to change the sign and make sure that I have x comma y. So x is 2, changing the sign, and y is -4. They just wrote this backwards because they want to be annoying. D we know is -8. They told us that straight up. Y equals -8. Remember, it's an equation. And then they also tell you that 16 is in the front. So this means this is the 4a part of our formula. So if you solve 4a equal to 16, you find out that the a value is 4. And you actually don't even have to do this, because if you use the picture, you can find that a is 4 another way. It opens up, I believe, because I don't see any negatives in front of our formula. But again, if you're not seeing all of that, what you need to at least find is the vertex. If you can at least find the vertex is 2, -4, you can then make a picture. And then if you know that the directrix is -8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you're actually able to find a without even using that formula. Because if you can see, this here is 4, and this is what I need to find my focus, because it's 4 away. There it is. And it opens up because you hug your focus and you sit on your directrix. So my answer is 2, 0. So like what I did was I counted 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's 4 away, so this has to be 4 away as well. Okay, the next question is going to ask you to do this in simplest a plus bi form algebraically. But what's actually cool is you can type this whole thing into your calculator and get the answer without even having to do all the algebra. And at least you can get a point for that. But because I'm asking algebraically, you're going to have to show work. So really easy peasy. You're going to write this out 3 times and do box method a bunch of times. There's a bunch of ways to approach this, but absolutely need to do box method. Please don't not do that. 4, -2i, -2i, and then I squared. So I get 4 minus 4i plus I squared. And I still have another 2 minus I over here. Okay. Now you could choose to do box method right now, or you can choose to simplify these parentheses. I don't really know what you want to do. It's really up to you, so maybe I'll do box method right from here and then simplify at the end. Maybe that'll be easier for you guys. I don't know, but you can simplify the I squared and the 4 right now if you really wanted to. But I'll do this first. Maybe it's less confusing. I think it might be. 2 times 4 is 8. And then 2 times negative 4 is negative 8i. I haven't done it this way, so hopefully I don't mess up. 2i squared. And then negative 4i. And then positive 4i, because a negative and a negative. And then negative I cubed. Oops, what the heck did I just do? Negative I cubed. Okay. And then I will combine like terms. So I see that these guys combine. The 8 stays, but that gets you negative 12i. Oh, this is a squared. I and I make squared. Sorry. These guys combine to 6i squared. And then minus I cubed. Okay. These can't reduce, but I know I cubed is negative I. No, negative 1. I squared is negative 1. I'm doing that one first. I cubed is negative I. You guys can type them into your calculators. Whenever you have a power of I, just type it in. It'll tell you how to reduce it. This gets me negative 6, and then positive I. 8 minus 6 is 2. And then negative 12 plus 1, because there's a 1 really here, and that's an I, is negative 11i. I hope I did this right. I did it differently when I was on the key, so let me just double check. You also would type this into your calculator to check, and boom, this way worked. Perfect. So, yeah, again, you can type this whole thing into your calculator, though. You can type in 2 minus I cubed in parentheses and get the answer. You got one more question. I thought that was the last one. Okay, so solve the equation and express your answer in simplest a plus bi form. Right away I see an x squared and I see a plus bi form, so I'm thinking quadratic formula. So I go to my reference sheet and I write this down, and I go ahead and solve, because this one's probably not factorable. Okay, so I got a equal to 4, b equal to negative 3, and c equal to 2, because we see a, b, c. What the heck just happened? Okay. Why isn't this recording? Oh, it is. Okay. Oh my god. A, B, and C. Okay. X equals negative negative 3 plus or minus negative 3 squared. Please put parentheses around the B when you have a negative, especially in your calculator, for A, and then C, and all over 2A, so 2 times 4. So negative negative 3 is positive, and 2 times 4 is 8. I always take care of that first. Then I'm going to take care of my inside of my radical by just plugging in the whole inside. So all I want to plug in is this whole inside. Make sure you have those parentheses around that negative 3. And I don't remember what I got, so let's type it in. I got negative 23. Yep. So we got negative 23 in there. Now, of course, I would say try to break up 23, but 23 is not able to be broken up. But what can happen is there's a negative under that radical, so I know that there's an I that's going to come out. And then you have to do this, because A plus BI requires you to separate the two terms. If you don't separate it and you leave it like the step before this step, you will get a point off. And that's the review sheet. Study up, do it a few times, and come back to help.